And we've been exploring together the Ten Commandments for a long time now. It's taking a long time to finish off this series. And today is commandment number 8. And we've discussed that. The first 4 commandments are really about how God sees us and what He has done for us and His love towards us. And the last 6 commandments are the response to God's love. How we treat others really reflect how we feel about God. And today's commandment is commandment 8, number 8. And we've been seeing this commandments as a commandment of love from God, as a marriage covenant from God. And today's covenant from God is commandment number 8. Let's open together Exodus chapter 20, verse 15. Exodus chapter 20, verse 15. A very short and a brief command from God. Exodus chapter 20, verse 15. It says here, "You shall not steal. You shall not steal." In the past 2 sermons, when we discussed the previous 2 sermons, we've discussed the 2 commands, you shall not murder and you shall not commit adultery. And we explored together that these were really about, you shall not murder. Murder is really about you shall give life to others. You shall make others feel alive. And the 7th commandment, you shall not commit adultery, we discussed together and explored together that it's really about you shall be faithful to your spouse. You shall be faithful until you're married. So what would today's message will be from this command, you shall not steal? What would it be? What's the opposite of stealing? Giving. That's right. And I thank God that it fits in fits in perfectly with the Christmas message too, the God who gave. So I guess this command, the 8th command, is really about you shall give. When God says you shall not steal, He's really talking about you shall give. You shall give. Because that's who really God is. God is a God who gives. He's a God who gives life. He's a God who creates so that He can share His love. He can give His love to His creation. That's who God is. God is a God who provides. God is a God who gives. That's who God is. This taking and stealing, the concept of taking and stealing and receiving only came through sin enter this world. We sometimes say that, but how about God, taking away lives? We blame God for taking away lives. But does God really take away lives? No, the Bible is very clear that it is the wages of sin that is death. It's through Satan when he coveted, when he wanted, and when he wanted to take God's position, sin, it bore fruits to sin. And the result of sin is death. So it's only through sin, this desire to always want, to always to take, always to receive, came into this world. But the Bible tells us that we are made in the likeness of God. And somewhere in our hearts, there ought to be a deep yearning and a deep desire to give. That's who God made us to be, to give. But since Adam and Eve chose the wrong path, this human race, the fallen race, followed the character traits of devil himself, the fallen angel Lucifer. Lucifer wanted God's position. Lucifer wanted to be like God. He wanted the things that did not belong to him. And since Adam and Eve follow that character trait, we can see in the human race that we always want to have something. We always want to take something that does not belong to us. We like receiving. It's in our genes to take away things, wanting and receiving rather than to give. When I look at my children, they're beautiful, innocent kids. I love them to bits. But, as I see them, running around playing, from time to time I see my son, taking off the things from her little sister. It breaks our hearts. But I never taught him to take things away, but it's in our genes to take things that does not belong to us. We don't have to even teach our kids to do that. Because the result of sin made us to follow the character traits of Satan, to take things, snatch it, always receive, always satisfy yourself. Unfortunately, sin tainted our character of giving to receiving and taking. Without teaching, we know how to do that. If we don't teach our kids, the kids will continue to take all the time, I guess. But in this midst of selfish world where we like taking and receiving all the time, God came to this world to demonstrate who He is, a God who gives, not a God who takes and snatches. Romans chapter 5, verse 8. Apostle Paul tells us here, Romans chapter 5, verse 8, said that, "But God demonstrated His own love towards us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." God came to demonstrate who He is in the midst of this selfish world where we like to take and receive and to snatch. God came to demonstrate, hey guys, you are meant to give because you're made in my image. And He came to demonstrate who He is by giving His own Son while we were still sinners, while we were still rebels, while we were still His enemies. He came to give His only Son. And Christ gave Himself to us while we were still rebellious. The Father gave His only Son for this selfish world. God wanted to redeem His people and restore the image of God once again in this fallen race. So that's why when God redeemed the people from Egypt, He brought them to Himself and He gave them this command, the set of commandments, a marriage covenant to His people, saying, "You shall not steal, because I want you to be a people who gives. I don't want you guys to be a people who snatches and takes and receives all the time, but I want you to be a people who gives. Don't take, but receive, because that's who I am." That's why God gives this special command, "Thou shalt not steal." Because God knew that in a culture of always taking and receiving and snatching, God knew that it will bring destruction. The culture of taking will always bring destruction. God knew that. That's why among His people, He wanted them to have life instead of destruction. That's why He gave this special command, "Thou shalt not steal." I want you guys to give, because a giving culture will flourish and have life, not destruction. Now, we've been exploring together that these commandments of love as a marriage covenant from God, how could this fit the covenant number 8? How could it fit in the marriage theme? Well, Ephesians chapter 5, Apostle Paul tells us. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25, it says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave Himself for her." When the commandment number 8 is really about you shall give. God is talking here about a giving relationship. Just as Christ gave Himself to the church, Husbands, love your wives. Loving means to give, not to always take. And that's the case with marriage too, right? If I always have the attitude towards Debbie, you need to give to me, and I need to take the things for granted, and I always need to receive. Will that kind of relationship work? It will exhaust the partner. It will make them sick of the partner. What's the point of this relationship? You're always receiving and taking, snatching. But in a relationship, when we give to one another, it builds and edifies. Just like it edifies the church too, when we love one another, just as Christ gave himself to the church. So certainly in this 8th commandment too, we can see that marriage theme going on here too. You shall give. Don't take, don't steal, don't snatch, but you shall give. That's the way to flourish. Christ, just as Christ gave himself for the church. God gave himself to this fallen race so that he may redeem them and bring them to himself and restore them the true image of God, a giving God. In John chapter 10, Jesus, as a good shepherd, compared himself to a thief who steals. Open with me, John chapter 10. John chapter 10. Starting from verse 1, John chapter 10. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Yet they will by no means follow a stranger, but will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of a stranger. Jesus used this illustration, but they did not understand the things which he spoke to them. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But a hireling who is not the shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my sheep. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. Therefore my Father loves me, because I lay down my life, and that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This command I have received from my Father. Here, Jesus compares himself to robbers and thieves who steals. And he says here that the robbers who steal, they only come to steal and to kill and to destroy. The end result of stealing is destruction. But Jesus says here right after that, in verse 10, it says that, but I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd, that the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. Jesus says that the end result of taking is destruction. But the end result of giving is life. Now, as we are entering into this festive season of Christmas too, the core message of this Christmas is all about this God who gave himself to us. The God who gave, he did not come to steal, he did not come to take, nor did he come to receive, nor to destroy, but he came to give. He came to give himself so that he can give life. The God of the universe who had everything, gave up everything so that he can come and give life to those who lost it. As we are made in the likeness of God, God wants to restore us this true image of God, the God who gives. That's why God says here, do not steal, because I want you to be people who gives. I want you to be people who give life, not to destroy. Apostle Paul says in Acts chapter 20, verse 25 in his message, he delivered this message quoting from Jesus Christ, saying that, Acts chapter 20, verse 35, it says, remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Now, as we enter into this festive season of Christmas, I'd like you to contemplate. Go back and read this 8th commandment again. Short command, you shall not steal. But I want you to hear the voice of God saying, it's really about, you shall give. You shall give. Because God set the example of giving first. He gave himself for us while we were still sinners. He demonstrated his love so that he can restore that image of God in us once again. Let me finish with this quote from The Spirit of Prophecy, A New Life, page 131. It says here, everything that God could do was done to save a perishing world. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God has made it impossible for it to be said that he could have done more than he has done for the fallen race. When he gave his Son, he gave himself. In one great gift, he poured out the whole treasure of heaven. He has revealed a love that defies all computation, a love that should fill our hearts and live with gratitude. God has made it impossible for it to be said that he could have done more than he has done for the fallen race. Isn't that amazing? He poured out the whole heaven into the gift of Jesus Christ, so that we also may reflect that character of God to others too. May we be giving people, not receiving people and taking people. May we be people who gives. May God bless you as we enjoy this festive season and remember about the God who gives. May God bless you.